Episode 2 of Eyes on the Prize. This is Jeff Eisenband. Thanks so much for everyone that survived episode 1 and is actually coming back for more in episode 2. Or maybe this is the first one that you're trying, but I appreciate you coming on because the question that we're asking right now is, where does social media go from here? Where does social media for athletes go from here? And Blake Lawrence is on, CEO of Opendorse. For those who don't know, Opendorse is behind a lot of your favorite athletes, helping them. And this is not, I'm not reading a promotion. This is just, I'm friends with Blake. I am very interested in what he does, and what they do is they help athletes send out content on social media. The way it works is that an athlete has the interface, has the product. They have a green or red button. Brands, teams, whoever has an account on Opendorse can send an athlete the social media post, and they can click green to send it out, red to not send it out. There is money attached if it's a sponsored post. For professional athletes, we're going to talk about with Blake because he is currently maneuvering. He's already working with collegiate and high school athletes, but as college athletes are going to be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness, his company Opendorse is right at the forefront. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what athletes are, what they should be doing, what they can be doing, what is right now during this time, as we hope everyone is staying safe and healthy in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. I want to hear from you how to make this podcast better during this time. I'm going to continue to try to interview as many interesting people in the sports and esports and entertainment industry as possible and put out as much content as I can. And I want to hear how you think I can make it better. That includes the videos I'm putting on social. That includes the audio that you are getting here. Also, as a reminder, you can follow me at Jeff Eisenband on all forms of social media. This is Blake Lawrence, CEO of Opendorse, episode 2 of Eyes on the Prize. I've got my friend Blake Lawrence here, the in charge of everything, the CEO of Opendorse. We've had conversations before. So this is, yep. I'm not going to act like this is something that we've never had before, but now we're taping it. And I want half the conversation to be stuff that I know about you and half stuff that I learn about you here. Like, I still think there's layers of the Blake Lawrence onion to uncover. I hope that you feel that way.
I got to watch myself now, man. You got it on tape. So.
Well, I told you, I want Bo Pelini's stories. That's where we're going. But I do want to start, for everyone, Opendorse, which you'll explain better than I can. But the biggest part about Opendorse is that it helps athletes use social media and, in my mind, monetize social media. And I know that wasn't necessarily the original intention, but things have changed over time. Before I get into that, I want to go into the early Blake Lawrence days as a kid in Kansas who gets recruited, one of the top linebackers in the country, to Nebraska. What was that experience like growing up with Kansas football?
Well, Kansas City is not a mecca for college football recruits, but
it's the mecca of football right now.
Yeah, that's right, man. Kansas City, go Chiefs! Got a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year too. Actually, look at that.
Look at that. Doesn't say champs. Doesn't say champs, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, I just had to, it was on discount. But growing up in Kansas City, my older brother was recruited as well as a quarterback, and he committed to Kansas and to play quarterback at Kansas for Mark Mangino. And, I was getting courted from places all over the country. And when I saw him get the chance to play D1, I thought, man, that'd be really cool if I had the opportunity. And it turns out that just the day that he signed to play at Kansas, I got my first offer from Missouri. It started to kind of roll from there. So I picked up over 20 scholarship offers across the country, flew out and did official visits places like Texas Tech and Stanford, and of course throughout the Midwest and the Big 12 country. So when I landed at Nebraska on my first visit, I fell in love. Called the place home for many, many years, and thankful to go through that recruiting process. And I do have a good story for you if you want to hear it.
I of course want to hear it. By the way, I just want to mention before you even start that, so people recognize how good of a high school player you are. I think it's either ESPN or Scout had you at 19 and Von Miller at 17. So just so people understand in that class, Yeah, Vaughn was a little better than you,
He
but you
was
were
a little
right there
better.
with him.
He was a little better. He's doing all right for himself. Yeah, I got the Gatorade Player of the Year stuff. I mean, it was fun, man. I know that experience for many folks. They look back fondly on their high school sports memories, and I do too. I enjoyed that. And here's an interesting one. My parents, after I signed at Nebraska, surprised me with a new car. So they bought me a new car to go to college with, and within a week, the NCAA was in our high school, and I was sitting down explaining to them where I got this car. And I thought that was one of the wildest things is that somebody somewhere said, "Hey, somebody should look at this Lawrence kid. He just got a driving around a brand new car. Where the hell did he get it?" And so that's going to come full circle when we start talking later about the NCAA and what's going on in that world. But yeah,
Well, a couple things. First of all, how do you think they found out about the car?
some Kansas fan that's mad I didn't go to Kansas. I guarantee it.
Is
Yep.
that now? As someone who grew up in Westchester County in New York, and we kind of had Rutgers and Army in Yukon to look down the street to. College football wasn't like that for me growing up. Is that what it was like, even at the high school level in Kansas?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that especially in Kansas City, you have the Kansas and Missouri fans that go back and forth and they bicker all the time. And so when a kid from Kansas City does not go to Kansas or Missouri or even K-State, then there's all eyes on why did this kid not go to a hometown, school? And I think a lot of them get bitter and say, well, he must be getting paid, or he must be getting some advantage. I don't know. So I'm sure that's where it came from.
All right. Well, you go to Nebraska. I don't know if you drove there in the car or not your freshman year, but you drive to Lincoln, you get down there. And what are your goals as such a, like I said, number 19 linebacker recruit? What are your goals in Lincoln? Are you thinking NFL? Are you thinking national championship? What is an 18-year-old thinking at the time?
Thinking both of those things, thinking a chance to compete at the high level, make it to the NFL if I can, even for a sniff. National championships, of course. We were ranked number 14 going into preseason of my freshman year. We had college game day on campus, USC, our third game of the year. And they were number one team in the country, and they kicked our ass. We ended up losing 7 games my freshman year. Our head coach got fired. Bill Callahan got fired. They brought in Bo Pelini. And so it was a whole new world. Within 6 months of showing up on campus, everything I knew about Nebraska football had changed. And so that's a different type of transition for anyone to go through. And but fortunately, was able to play as a true freshman, which really would set me up for an opportunity to start as a sophomore.
And then the storyline as it goes was that you end up not playing, you end up not finishing your career because of head injuries. So take me through what went on year to year in terms of you going through concussions at Nebraska.
Yeah, so I suffered my first concussion the spring of my, going into my sophomore year. Didn't think much about it as part of the game, but one of the things that was scary is I had short-term memory loss. So, Jeff, I would look around, imagine you're my teammate. I'm looking at you right in the face, and I don't know your name, right? I don't know anyone's name or what the plays were. So it's kind of a scary thought. And as I had another concussion and kind of had my third one, there's 2 things that were really significant in my decision to quit playing football. Um, One of them was a doctor that told me, a neurologist that said, "Hey, you know that feeling when you don't remember anyone's name or what's going on or where you're at? What if that's how you felt for the rest of your life?" And I was like, that's a good question. The second thing that really made me think twice about playing the game was Bo Pelini. So he brought me into his office after my third concussion. I was a starting linebacker, and he said, "Hey, if you were my son, I would never let you play football again." I thought that was something that really was a different approach. A lot of coaches say, "Hey, suck it up. This is how the game's played." But Bo gets a rap for being on the sidelines cussing up a storm crazy coach, but he's a great guy, and he cares about his players very, very much. And so between those 2 things, I created an ultimatum and said, if I get one more, I'm done. And about 6 months later, had concussion in a practice and decided to hang up the cleats.
So, and this was real Bo, not faux Bo, right?
Yeah, and Bo Pelini's also a great, entertaining human, that's for sure. But yeah, Bo Pelini is a great dude. If you want the stories, I got them.
I'm sure you have him out. I mean, why? I want to know in that moment, why did he let you play, or did he feel like, look, this is going to be your decision? I'm not your father. I'm just your coach. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it was one of those that it was, in the spring, going into my junior season, and we were just up in his office, and he wasn't saying, "Hey, don't play." He's just saying, like, "This is serious. I've been around this game for a long time. I've seen guys, and here's the deal, Jeff. I was getting concussions on hits that other guys could take 3 times of practice. It just something about the way that my noggin works. I was just prone to concussions that other people wouldn't be. So I think it was a combination of him not saying, "Hey, you got to be done," but hey, you got to think about this because your life is bigger than this.
And you, as you said, you got that final concussion. You said, this is it. You did have, and I have your stats pulled up right here. So I
Oh
will mention,
boy.
you had 33 tackles. All right. I hope that people realize that in 17 games. Was there any, and this was Big 12, this was not Big 10 Nebraska back, any interesting tackles? Anyone in particular, any future NFL players you remember taking down?
Oh, well, I'll tell you about 2 tackles.
Ooh, two.
Yeah, well, one was the hardest dude I've ever had to tackle was DeMarco Murray. In 2008, we played down at Oklahoma, and they were the best team in the country. They scored like 55 points a game. Like Bradford won the Heisman, super sick. And I played that whole damn game. And DeMarco Murray, we're running towards the sidelines, and he could easily just step out of bounds, and he decides to just lower his shoulder. And I'm trying to run full speed, but also I start to let up because I'm like, oh, he's near the sidelines, and he just wallops me, man. I just was wicked. That was a fun one.
Did he go out of bounds, or
He
did he
did.
keep going?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah, he didn't just like uh, I got him out of bounds, but it was hard. And then another one, there's a guy, Jake Sharp. He was a running back at Kansas, but
Okay.
he's my brother's roommate, right? And so the whole year we're talking shit to each other. Like my brother was a backup quarterback, so he didn't get a chance to play. But Jake, like we're always talking shit, and so I start against Kansas, and I come up and pop him across the middle, just solo tackle, and we're underneath the pile of people, and I'm just like right in the front of the bench, and he goes, "Is it Blake? Is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, got you, bitch," and it just like those things that happen in the middle of a game where these guys and players might be closer than you think, and yeah, so tackling DeMarco was tough, and then tackling my brother's best friend and roommate was quite enjoyable.
All right, good. Two night and day experiences. But so then, you only play three years at Nebraska. You end up going to the University of Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken, for 5 years. How does your life change when football is out of the picture and now you have to turn to your career, your life, your education, and everything down those lines?
Yeah, there was definitely a shift when my life as a student athlete was over, and most folks kind of see that coming. They've got that senior day moment. For me, it was cut pretty quickly. I woke up as a starting linebacker, went to sleep, never playing football again, and so that was an abrupt stop. But thankfully, it always prepared for life after football and after sports. When I came to Nebraska, I asked the academic advisor what it would take to graduate in 2.5 years. Um, so I could get my MBA while I was still on scholarship. And they said, well, no one's ever done that. I don't know if we can. I said, well, let's try it. And so turns out I was able to do it. So I graduated in 2.5 years and went straight into the MBA program at Nebraska. And less than a year after being done with football, started my first company. So it was a shift where you find all this time um, and opportunity to focus on maybe that next passion that you've suppressed for some time to become a student athlete at a high level, and that's something that if I could take the passion and energy that I had for football and just shift the focus into something else, what would happen? And to me, that was entrepreneurship, marketing, and that turned into, again, our first company within a year of being done with football.
And, I should mention, you say your first company. To me, that could be anything. I don't know what your first company was. What was it? Because you've started a few companies.
Yeah. So our first company is Hurrdat Social Media. It's still around, Hurrdat, a silly name. It's actually named after a scene in Pineapple Express. Again, Jeff, I tell you things I wouldn't others people.
I don't know how I get it out of you, Blake.
Yeah, yeah. Heard that. Wish I didn't hear that, but I heard that. It's a silly. But Audie Kanalik and I started that company pretty much out of our dorm room at Nebraska, and we built it from the two of us to 25 employees. So it was a social media agency that we help businesses and brands around the world understand how to use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, blogs, YouTube to reach your customers. And we, at the end of the day, wrote a ton of copy and content creation for these companies. So they didn't really know how to do it, didn't have time to do it themselves. So they'd hire our agency, and basically I'd tell my mom that we got paid to blog, tweet, and Facebook all day, and that was a real company. But yeah, it was really my first foray into social media, and it was a decade ago. And every day since we started that company, this is what we've done, is help people understand that social media is a great way to keep connected and stay connected to people that you care about, whether they're your friends or family or your business and they're your customers.
One thing that you when telling me about Herdat, to bring Bo Pelini back into this, you said they used to let you, even when you weren't a player, they used to let you come back on the field, and you used to be discussing business with Audie, who was either the punter or the kicker. What was he? Was the kicker.
Yeah,
He was the
yeah.
kicker. And
Well,
how did they let you do that? And the NCAA again wasn't on your
oh
butt about
yeah,
that.
I got stories. Another one that I haven't shared publicly in a while, if ever. So yeah, Jeff, we'd have meetings on the practice field. So Audie was a kicker, which means that he doesn't really do anything at practice, right? Like no shit, like kickers don't do anything. Sorry, Audie. But we would meet, like we would discuss our new customers we had, or what we're going to do again, this new feature brought into our service package. And he'd like, oh shit, hold on, we got to do kickoff. Then he'd run and do a kickoff, then come back over and we'd finish up the meeting, but to take you back, you asked about the NCAA. This is interesting. I brought them up twice in this conversation. So on herddat.com, the first time we launched it, it had my profile, Blake Lawrence, former Nebraska linebacker, and marketing major, and then it had Audie Kanalik. And in his profile, it said he's going to be finishing up his career at Nebraska in the fall, which he was going in his senior year. Well, to be overly cautious, our compliance staff at Nebraska had said this was improper use of his name, image, and likeness, even though it was his business, right, that he was a co-founder in, that he was ruled ineligible. And this is on a Wednesday. On Friday, Nebraska football was flying to Washington to play the Huskies.
Is that the first game of that season?
It's yeah, I think it is. It's in 2010, Nebraska plays at Washington. Audie is ruled ineligible, and I get a cease and desist from the NCAA and Nebraska to remove Audie's mention of anything to do with Nebraska football from the website, even though it's our company and whatnot. And it was about an hour before the plane took off that we got Audie reinstated so he could go play the game. Wild to think about those moments that we've come through, but that was 10 years ago, and it just shines a light on how much progress is being made in the name, image, and likeness world. But that's the type of stuff that would happen, is that in order to protect Audie from being challenged in terms of his eligibility for using his NIL without permission, they had to rule him ineligible, get the cease and desist out, go through the process of compliance, and then get him reinstated so we could play the game.
So I'm looking. That was the third game of that season, just so you know.
Okay, good to know.
So you you didn't play, but Nebraska played Western Kentucky and Idaho the first two games, and then went to Washington. I'm pulling up the box score of that game right now, but I want to know from you, if Audie had to choose between Herdat and the Nebraska Cornhuskers at the time, what would he have done?
Oh, I mean, he would have gone and kicked the damn ball. The guy's like NCAA leader in touchbacks in a career, and around from the 30-yard line. So at the time, I mean, I wouldn't have even let him choose Herdat. You got to finish your career, and he wasn't in too much trouble. I mean, it just was a quick thing we had to fix, and thank goodness we did and got him on the plane.
So I'm seeing, by the way, I'm seeing Henry here kicks Alex Henry.
Alex Henry. So Audie was a kickoff specialist. Audie
Okay.
made one field goal in college, and Alex Henry was the most accurate kicker in NCAA history. So Audie came in. Alex was a walk-on and earned the starting gig. And then Audie said, "Well, I'll just focus on kickoffs," and made it to the NFL as a kickoff specialist.
Well, that's a luxury that Bo Pelini had when you have 110 players on the team in
Yeah.
college.
Yep.
You guys, so Hurrdat actually exists for or you're part of Hurrdat for 4 years, but I know that you end up moving on. Why do you transition from Hurrdat to Opendorse?
Yeah. So Opendorse is really formed from trying to solve a problem that started within Hurrdat, our agency. So 2011 NFL draft. Prince Amukamara is one of my best friends, and he gets drafted in the first round to the New York Giants and gives me a call and says, "Hey, I know you're working with these businesses and brands, helping them with social media. Can you help me out? I don't really know how it works, or I just would love to get your assistance." So I said, "Sure, let's do it." And so we started to work with Prince and creating videos and photos that he could share on Twitter or push on Facebook. And but one of the things that we would do for our businesses is we would always post for them. Like we would go in and nobody knows who's actually writing the content on a business page on Facebook. Like who does anyone care? I don't know. But for athletes, like it was important that Prince actually posted this content on his own. So we would always text him content or email him and say, "Hey, share this, post this." And we would wait and wait and wait, and the dude would never do it. And we're super frustrated because I know all too well that Prince could play in the league for a year, or he could play for 10 years. His career could be done real quick. And like if he doesn't actually invest in this and leverage the resource that he's paying for, then he's going to miss the chance to build an audience that's going to last a lifetime. And so I became like obsessed with like, how do we get Prince to actually post the content that we're sending him? And after tinkering, we built Opendorse, a simple platform. We had to make it Prince proof, where it's like we just load up the content and Prince gets a text. He taps once and then he sees a green button or a red button, and he just taps the green button, and then Opendorse would publish the content for him. So out of necessity, we built this tool, and after the first month of having it in Prince's hands, we got a call from the NFL Players Association. Said, "Hey, could you fly out to DC? We might want to use this for every NFL player and sponsor and licensee." And I said, "Yeah, we can do that." And that was a time when it's like, "All right, Audie, you take over Hurrdat. I'm gonna go focus 100% on Opendorse. We're gonna split it off in a separate company, and we're gonna go build this thing."
So that was I feel like I get a call from the NFLPA, and my NCAA, senses from earlier in this conversation start to tingle, but that was a good call from an association.
It was good. Yeah. So, I mean, it was one of those that had I don't know if we're in trouble here. Like they wanted to talk, and they said that, we have a problem. And I was like, do we have a problem or do they have a problem? I don't know. But I went out there, and Ahmad Nassar. Ahmad is a great dude. He's now the head of One Team Partners. Those guys they spun out, and Ahmad and I, and then Greg Viverito, who's a great name in sports biz and sports tech. We hunkered down and whiteboarded out this whole vision for how do we help NFL players understand their name, image, and likeness value online, right? How we understand where they're at on social media, what they're worth, and then put them in a place so it's green button, red button, super easy for them to work with partners, so sponsors, licensees, so EA Sports and Tide and Pepsi, like those types of partners, so that we can actually connect these two. And we started to envision like how this software would evolve, and this platform would evolve to help every player in the NFL. And from that point forward, it's been a crazy journey.
Yeah. So at this point, kind of catch everyone up to speed. So Adi is CEO of Hurrdat. You are CEO of Opendorse. You are both co-founders of each. And now the NFL has, I guess, put this, this conversation with the NFLPA, the sponsors have come in. Was that the original vision as Opendorse starts to be created? Was it about monetization? Was it about just giving athletes a button to push? Were you looking at agencies, athletes? Like, who were you intending this product?
Well, ultimately, just put the athlete right in the center, right? If you understand and are for Prince, it was like we needed to make it easy for him to publish content, right? And then when we were working with businesses at Herdat, we knew that to get a business page to 1,000 likes on Twitter, 10,000 likes on Facebook, I mean, it took forever. It took a lot of ad campaigns. It's like, or we could have Prince talk about the local car dealership, and Prince could help them reach, tens of thousands of people with one tweet. And so then we started to work on this concept of, okay, how do we not just make it so Prince hits a green button and publishes content, but hits a green button and gets paid? So then we started to bring in those, the focus of helping athletes not only look good on social media, but make money on social media. And for the NFLPA, 100% of their goal was to find new revenue streams and opportunities for NFL players. And we paid millions and millions of dollars to NFL players over the years through that same process. Click a button, get paid.
Yeah, I mean, for people that now, what does Opendorse look like today? How has it evolved over, 6 years or so? What's the difference now?
Well, I would say that there's so when we had that conversation with the NFLPA, we go through this process where it's like, okay, we're going to get deep into this game of helping athletes get paid and helping brands find the right athletes to say the right message at the right time and make sure everyone's happy. So the technology started to evolve into this marketplace of sorts where you could come in and say, oh, here's all the athletes that are available. Here's their market rates. I can select an athlete and pay them to promote my business. And one of the things that we realized is from 2013 to 2015 was the rise of the influencer, like the creator. These people out there that their entire job is creating content, engaging on social media. So athletes started to fall behind in terms of social media value because they simply weren't posting enough. They weren't sharing enough. Like their audience was maybe lacking interest simply because there wasn't anything to be interested in. And so we sat down and said, how do we get athletes access to content that can help them keep their feeds active, keep their community engaged? And that's when Opendorse evolved to start to partner with professional sports teams and leagues and athletic departments that have access to all this content, would love to have athletes share it, but are all too familiar with I can't get this guy to post this thing. And so we said, well, here, you can use the tool this way. And so we started to really, from the athlete's perspective, we had the commercial partners where they could get paid, make money. And then we had the content partners that are starting to help them look good. So again, if you put the athlete in the center, Opendorse is there really to solve their problems, help them look good and make money. And so we started to partner with teams, leagues, athletic departments across the world.
And in the early, I mean, you were the original one writing some of those messages, some of those tweets for Prince. When did you stop doing that?
So Opendorse is a technology company. So we provide the technology that allows PGA Tour, if they have a piece of content that they want to push to Rory McIlroy, they log into Opendorse, select Rory McIlroy, upload a video, and give him a recommended copy and hit send, and then Rory can review and approve on his phone. So we provide the technology. Our partners write the copy. So we stopped writing tweets for athletes the day we sold Herdat, which was back in 2014. And now we let other people, use the platform to do that.
I want to fast forward now to, one of the really prime, I know we've talked for like half an hour already, but one of the prime reasons that I wanted to talk to you was you guys are at the forefront right now of a lot of what's going on with the NCAA and a lot of what's going on with athletes being able to monetize their likeness. And you already sort of were putting the, parts in place. I know that Opendorse says, you guys say that you work with 10,000 athletes. Well, if people are wondering, how does that number get so high? A lot of those are college, high school athletes who were in the system already. You were creating content for them, but they couldn't necessarily make money off that. And now you're working with the University of Nebraska. Of course, everything starts. They're your grounds for where everything starts. But that seems to be when we get sports back eventually, that will be a ground for you guys to create and help athletes. What is that? What has happened so far, and what is that going to look like in the future?
Yeah, when Adi and I started Opendorse, we dreamed of the opportunity to bring it full circle, to bring the experience that we had seen professional athletes go through with Opendorse and growing their audience, monetizing that experience, and bring that back to student athlete, as an experience that we are very familiar with from our time at Nebraska. And with the coming changes to the name, image, and likeness policies in college sports, Adi and I, our ears perked up and said, we've spent a decade helping athletes understand their value, their name, image, likeness value, leverage tools and platforms like social media to increase that value and ultimately monetize it. If we could take everything we've learned in that experience and bring that back to the student athletes that are on campus today and get them prepared for that new future, which is coming soon. I mean, it's 10 months away from the first dollar flowing into the pocket of a student athlete in a compliant manner for use of their NIL. If we could take everything we had learned in the last decade and bring it to student athletes so they're prepared, then I think we would be doing something we would dream about just years ago, right? And now it's becoming a reality. So I'm super excited about it. It's going to be a brand new world in sports. It's the first time ever that 500,000 pieces of inventory are going to hit the market that have a built-in demand with local sponsors and businesses that are already supporting these institutions through sponsorship and marketing support and advertising. So it's just going to be an interesting time where takes some getting used to, but we've got an idea what's coming down the pipe and making sure that our partners, we've got 75 partners across college athletics, and getting each one of them ready for that future is the program that we put together.
Yeah, when I interviewed you for my Aussie profile on you, you said that was one of your proudest accomplishments, the NCAA permitting you guys to work with these NCAA athletes. But while they can't make money, what does that mean? What has Opendorse been doing, say, the last year or so?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. A student athlete, CD Lamb, right? He's going into the NFL draft, but for the last couple of years, whenever he got done with the game, he goes back to his locker. And on his phone, Oklahoma Athletics and the football team has already cut up his highlight from the game he just played that he can push to Twitter with one click, right? And so the reason that the school is doing that is they know that if the athletic department is the front porch to the university, you've heard that saying. So if the athletic department is the front porch to university, then the student athletes are the little kids running around on the yard, right? What they say has a significant impact on how people feel about the university. And so we have helped schools work together with student athletes to share a common message on social media, helping the student athletes grow their personal brand, helping the school extend their brand. Everybody wins. So on the back end, when we went to work with NCAA student athletes, we had to sit down with the NCAA and say, here's how this is going to work. And we made sure that this was going to be 100% compliant so that student athletes wouldn't be able to work with the Pepsis and the EA Sports and our partners on that side. And so we built a wall, imagine as tall as the North Wall in Game of Thrones, right? And said, hey, student athletes on one side and pro athletes on the other. But the moment that, I'll take it to Jarrett Culver, right, from Texas Tech. He's using Opendorse as a student athlete, then he goes pro. The moment he exhausts his eligibility, there's a button on the back of Opendorse. We flip a switch, and now he can monetize his NIL through the same exact platform. And so it's great to help the student athletes groom and understand the value of personal branding and social media while they're on campus. And then those that get to that next level and can monetize, Opendorse is there to help them as well.
Yeah. So to backtrack, these athletes, as it started with Prince, they get a green button or a red button. Green button, this is all good. You click it, sends it out to the world. If it's a pro athlete that has a sponsor attached to it, then great. They make whatever's on the dotted line for money.
Yep.
And if they click red, then they turn it down, and the sponsor or the agency or whoever it is, can rewrite or send or whatever. They deal with that. Now, for college athletes, what you're saying is that there is no dollar sign next to what they're doing.
That's
so
it.
in the CD Lamb situation, we're saying Oklahoma is paying Opendorse to have access to the software, but the student athletes themselves, to this point, things are about to change. They could not actually make money by clicking that green button.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Jeff, I saw you cut out for a hot second. I blame you, not me. But I'm assuming you're saying yes on the schools right now. They have nothing to do with the compensation
Okay.
side. All that's turned off for the student athletes and the colleges. They're using it purely as a content delivery and content distribution tool. Yeah, so it's just that same simplicity though. Like if you've been an athlete and you've been around athletes, you know that their time is limited. You got to make it easy. It's not because they don't care. It's just because they've got a lot of things consuming their time. And so we want to make this as few taps as possible to create
Mm-hmm.
as much value as possible for athletes around the world.
Yeah. And so now when athletes are able to make money off their likeness, you will be able to do that. And of course, it's I don't have to say anything. Everything will be in compliance with the NCAA and the way that they structure everything. Blake, I see also, I'm on your Twitter profile right now. It now says helping 12,000 athletes. Last time we talked
12,000.
about 3 months ago, it was for that interview, it was 10,000. And
Yep.
in your profile, you say helping 12,000 athletes maximize value of name, image, and likeness rights. So you're right there. This is you have that right there on your Twitter profile beyond Opendorse. Okay. This, what's going to happen for college athletes. We've heard about it for so long, but now what's gone on in California and is starting to break down in other states, it's becoming very real. How do you, and again, beyond Opendorse, just the industry as a whole, how do we regulate the monetization of collegiate athletes, both so people aren't getting greedy and taking advantage of them, but at the same time that only, I think there's been a big fear that 90 to 95% of the athletes are going to be making 90 to 95% of the
Yeah.
of revenue. The opposite of what I said.
Right.
5% of the athletes are going to be making 95% of the revenue. What's
Yeah.
going to happen?
So there is so much focus right now when it comes to name, image, and likeness rights on the student athlete making money from a local car dealership commercial or autograph signing or EA Sports video games. And those are parts of what will happen in the future of the NIL rights monetization in college. But the majority of student athletes don't know anyone that is making money through commercials and signing autographs, any of the traditional endorsement deals, because so much of that's reserved to the pro athlete, and agents are involved in marketing reps, and there's a lot more required to set up all those types of monetization opportunities. But every student athlete on every campus right now knows someone that's making money by streaming on Twitch, monetizing YouTube, posting on Instagram, posting on Twitter. And I believe there's not enough attention put on the fact that most athletes are going to be monetizing their name, image, likeness through social and digital tools, not through traditional endorsement deals. And that's just 500,000 student athletes. Not every single one of them is going to get an opportunity to sign an autograph at the local car dealership, but every single one of them, if the rules change tomorrow, could monetize their NIL online with tools that are freely accessible, scalable, trackable, and can keep everything above board and compliant, which is ultimately what will make college sports stay college sports, is that there's some level of visibility, awareness, tracking into each transaction related to NIL.
NIL, name, image, likeness. I taught someone today, IRL is in real life. All of these abbreviations we're going to have to get down. Do you think, and I'll use an example, Ed Orgeron, there's a clip that always goes viral of him doing a spot for a local Mississippi Hummer dealership.
Uh-huh.
I say that because I share it over and over again.
Yeah.
But now, and Hummer's coming back. So there's Hummer National and there's Hummer Local. How much do you think a lot of these collegiate athletes are going to be used from a local perspective, especially as someone who, like you said, is from Kansas, went to Nebraska, heartland college towns, that maybe people in cities who are also working for these brands, I don't know if they quite comprehend, that sort of localized mark that a lot of these collegiate athletes have.
Yeah, the average college has 146 partners, sponsors, right? The average college athletic department has 140. Did I say 146?
Yep.
So that's very exact, but that is the average in terms of sponsors in college athletics, and each one of them are local, right? And there's old saying that all influence is local. What we've realized in the 10 years of working in this space is that the local athlete will outperform supporting a local business every single time compared to a national athlete supporting a national business. And we see results in different markets where we work closely with Learfield IMG on different campaigns and different markets where someone that you've never heard of, in Nebraska, I'll just as an easy example, Jack Gangwish was a walk-on
Of course, yeah, sure.
defensive end, becomes a captain of the football team. He's famous on Twitter because not famous, infamous because he got bit by a raccoon. I mean, this type of
When you
guy.
say famous on Twitter, famous on national Twitter or Lincoln,
No,
Omaha
in
area?
Nebraska, the guy's loved because he's a walk-on, became a captain, got bit by a raccoon, right? But Jack Gangwish is in a position where he can make a couple $100 a social media post or for a local promotion, which is nothing to turn your head at if you're somebody that didn't get a shake at the pro level, right? Make a couple $100 to use your NIL in the local market, but we've got a comparison where Jack Gangwish drove more value on a couple $100 post for a local business than a Super Bowl MVP drove for Burger King on a post, right? So you're talking about and gotten paid in the tens of thousands of dollars, right? So I just think that to bring it back to exactly what you're talking about, there's going to be more local activations than most people think, but that becomes a challenge in terms of tracking, understanding who's paying who for what. And that's the ultimate challenge that the NCAA has in front of them. And also any of these rules that are going through state legislation, they're putting in place some really challenging tasks in terms of monitoring and ensuring there's compliance across the board. So it's interesting as the market's going to evolve.
Have you dealt with the government in any sort of way in what you're doing that you can talk about?
I've had conversations with
the feds.
Very interesting, some deep in conversation with folks that are very interested in where the federal and state legislation policies are heading, for sure.
That's all Detective Blake Lawrence will give us, folks.
Yeah, that's all he wrote.
Let's talk about right now, because we're in a very critical time in this country, in this world. We hope everyone listening is safe and healthy. On top of that, athletes, people in business, everyone's still trying to move along. Everyone's still trying to navigate. And it's been such a critical time. I got to shout out, I've had long conversations with Joe Favorito about this because he's been in this business for so long. And we've been talking just about what should athletes, what should sports brands, what should leagues be doing right now. So from a social perspective, what's your takeaway of what they should be doing right now?
I think the first thing is to take a step back for every one of our partners that we work with across pro and college sports teams and leagues is they take a step back, realize where sports plays a role in the conversation that's throughout our culture and community right now on dealing with this pandemic, the physical stress, the mental stress this has on a lot of communities. And most sports teams have done a great job understanding that they're here to uplift or provide some escape or provide double down on supporting community efforts and initiatives. And but what we've seen from our partners is that first week was really take a step back, assess like where we stand, and then get back into the game. And I think that the teams that are finding ways to entertain through the escape that sports is, finding the archive clips and moments that most of the time wouldn't get a sniff in the social feed, are getting all the play that they deserve. So I think there's more content coming out that's creative from teams because they don't have that consistent flow of event-based content that is kind of, you write it off, that 75% of the content for sports teams is about the games they're playing, right? On a typical world. But without the games, it's giving them 100% of the feed to focus on maybe concepts or processes or creative outlets that they normally wouldn't have the capacity or bandwidth to dive into. And so they're getting deeper into that thought process of how do we engage and inform our audience when the games aren't going on. And it's been fun to see how teams and leagues and players themselves are entertaining their audience.
I think people are wondering, you have people sitting around on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram all day. And by the way, if anyone wants to look, sometimes it says, sometimes a team or league or player will leave that posted by Opendorse by
Mm.
accident in what they're doing. But are you seeing a higher level of engagement right now or a lower level of engagement on social media?
So we built out a dashboard tracking the social media posts of every pro athlete in the major sports leagues across the US and some internationally. And on Twitter, what we were seeing, we looked at the week before March 12th and the week after March 12th, because that's kind of when everything started to get canceled. And I wrote down some of the numbers here, is that athletes from the major US sports leagues the week prior sent out 23,000 total tweets. The week after, they sent out 30,000. So you're seeing a 33% uptick in terms of activity on social. Their engagements from the week prior were at 12 million on Twitter. They rose to 20 million the week after. So you're seeing a 50% increase. So not only are athletes leaning in more on social, the fans are craving that content more. And so it's really given this interesting outcome, I think, of all of this, is that athletes are going to understand the importance of staying connected to this audience. And fans are going to realize that if the games go away, the eyeballs shift to the players, not necessarily the teams. They're looking for personalities that are going to keep them engaged with sports, not necessarily the sports teams or leagues themselves. So I think there's a lot of learning to be done on the behaviors, and we're tracking all the trends to understand like which leagues are doing it right and which ones are maybe taking more of a pause.
Now, there's also an aspect of a lot of sponsors, right? It's indicative, their sponsorship is indicative of what's going on. I'm thinking Wendy's or Body Armor for March Madness. Obviously, they can't make money off the players can't make money, but maybe those brands have something with professional athletes that they can work on and promote. But without March Madness, that's not going on. How have you seen this through your own platform? How have brands adapted to their own sponsored posts in this time?
Yeah, it's been interesting because we've had some, again, everyone has to assess what role they play, because every message is criticized from a sponsor or brand. You have to be aware that
Mm-hmm.
there's a pandemic going on. So we've had some sponsors stop. They just cut things off. We've had some sponsors that want to leverage their relationships with athletes to do more, to bring more like good cause type things. And we've had some athletes that don't want to fulfill any of their obligations. They'd rather like say no to the money, so that they're not looking like they're shelling, like making money
Mm-hmm.
during a pandemic. It's a very interesting situation. Um, and others that are saying, hey, great branded content, great sponsored content on social media is built to entertain, to engage, to provide value beyond the shtick of, hey, go buy a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Panini, the trading card company, is doing a great job right now with this Path to the Draft campaign that they started to roll out with, Benjamin and different athletes that are going into the NFL draft. And the content itself is engaging, it's entertaining, and that's the type of stuff that I think most brands are trying to say, okay, if we can either inform or entertain or engage, then we should push forward. If we're trying to sell, this is not the right time to do that.
I'm pulling up right now because I think it's Panini actually has done a good job. They almost always sponsor an NFL player during the draft. I think Patrick Mahomes was one that when he got drafted, he wasn't in the room. He was actually somewhere
Yep.
else sitting with Lee Steinberg, his agent, and Panini was behind. So,
Yep.
this is affecting, and someone who cares about the NFL draft is one of their premier events.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's where a lot of these right now we're partners with the PGA Tour, right? And so much of the value that these sponsors get out of the tour, it's all event based. So if the events don't happen, how do you provide value to the sponsors? Well, the next best thing are the players themselves, right? So if you can't promote the event, can you promote the sponsor through the players? And so this is some things that right now, in this indefinite future of no events in sports, our partners are looking at players as the next outlet, and keeping connected, because they can't shove all the sponsored content into the league channel. They can't do it with the teams, so they have to find other places. Again, it's bringing to light this the value of having additional channels and thinking of athletes as an extension of the brand, another way to connect and engage fans, which ultimately becomes a revenue driver for the team or league itself. So it's been pretty cool to see how the light bulb is going off a little bit more with some of our partners.
Important question that I've never asked you before. How do you feel about starting to work with esports athletes?
I want to do more in esports. I know I need to have more conversations with you about how the world operates. What we have found, that there are streamers who tend to be more like an influencer or creator, that they themselves are marketers. They understand the importance of social media. They engage their fans in ways that most athletes would never think of. So those are the streamers. And then you have the esports athletes, like the gamers. And that would be, I don't know if you like that term, Jeff. You can tell me not to use it, but
we could talk about that.
Yeah, but the streamers, then the esports athletes that are just supremely talented, maybe not gifted marketers, and those are the athletes that I would love to help, because that's the norm for us, are helping athletes understand that what you do on the field, what you do on the stream, right, in the game is one part of your personality, but there's this whole other side that if you leverage that platform to build up your audience, then once the games go away, like, people still care about you, right? And I think that esports athletes, I would love to work in that space. We're not deep in it, but trying to find different ways to see where we could fit into it.
Yeah, and I the two profiles that I've done for Ozzy, one was on you and one was on Nasher, who's a hockey streamer influencer. And one part of the reason that I did the interview was he was launching something with Bauer, and the officials at Bauer were saying, we see him as valuable from a promotional standpoint, from a social media standpoint, as some NHL players. So that's definitely what I think you're seeing, as a prime example in the esports industry. That's something that you can measure against the athletes themselves. I've taken a lot of time from you, but I have a couple quick questions, Blake. First of all,
yeah.
You grew up in Kansas. You went to school in Nebraska. Oklahoma is not far from there. Did you ever make a trip to the GW Zoo in Wynwood, Oklahoma to see the Tiger King?
Joe Exotic, the Tiger King? No, I didn't. But man, he is, what an influencer. I wish that Joe Exotic had a Twitter page, because he would be, the world is his oyster right now. That's for sure.
I mean, when you see something like that, does it jump out, hey, maybe we should go beyond sports in the future, that there are all these people out there?
We literally today, we launched the Opendorse for business, basically the same principle that, in the world of sports, athletes don't say enough. They need a little bit of help, so we just make it easy for them. That's true in a lot of business environments. Executives that are the face of their company have not grown up with social. It's not native to them. So the same green button, red button simplicity works with executives. So we've seen a lot of use cases there. Joe Exotic, and the whole, any of those influencers or creators, there are a lot of other platforms that are helping those types out. Athletes are our mainstay, but I wouldn't mind working with Joe Exotic and Tony the Tiger. Frosted Flakes campaign is something I could dream of.
I was gonna ask what brand you thought would fit, but you settled that. Before I let you go, what are you doing in shelter in place right now? I guess you're in New York City, so this is in this time. What have you learned, I guess, about yourself, and what activities are you able to do just right there, other than work in your apartment?
Boy, I'm engaged. So my fiance and I, we've been together for 8 years, but in terms of, we lived together for years, but she works, in the field, and I'm always at the office. So it's a new environment of sharing a 1-bedroom spot and not driving each other absolutely nuts. But we found a good rhythm. We, been binging the shows that you mentioned in terms of the Tiger King and Ozark 3. We've got a Peloton here, so jumped on that early on, and that's been keeping us in shape and making sure we just don't drive each other crazy,
That's how you have to do it. Blake, anything else before I let you go that's going on with you?
No, Jeff, you good? Are you doing all right?
I'm good. I got this NBA 2K League backdrop tonight. We're taping this on Tuesday. I got a broadcast from my studio here at my girlfriend's childhood bedroom. That's where we're coming to the NBA 2K League fans at tonight. But no, it's an interesting time. I appreciate everyone that listened. I'm trying, as I've been saying, I'm trying to highlight some of the really interesting people that I've met in this industry. And you are certainly someone that I've realized has an outstanding story, personal story to tell, Blake, also an outstanding business story to tell. I've seen you do it on panels. I've seen you just do it in conversation with me. And I'm so happy that we're able to tape this and get this podcast out and show these videos to the world.
Yeah, man, me too. Jeff, I appreciate the friendship and excited for you to get this thing up and rolling. And you can bring me back, if you like it, I'll always come back.
Well, when this goes down the road and we need some social media help, I'll definitely do that. I'll also drop your name when I finally meet Bo Pelini one day.
No,
I will say that
do.
I'm Blake's friend. That's why I keep you close. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks so much for listening. That's Blake Lawrence, CEO of Opendorse, a friend of mine who I wish went to the GW Zoo before we had this conversation. But basically, I feel like Blake, we were able to touch on so much. He's covered so many bases in the sports world as a former athlete himself, and also as someone who has worked with so many professional athletes that we have to get him into esports, folks. That's going to be the next avenue. Of course, Blake right now focusing a lot on those collegiate athletes as the NCAA lifts, I guess, some of those, barriers on name, image, and likeness. But this has been Eyes on the Prize. Thank you so much. You can follow me at Jeff Eisenband. Appreciate the listen here on episode 2.